Some people, 10 years later, they just can't talk about 9/11, and I feel like I want to.
I could have died. I knew a lot of people that died, and I think it's really affected me.
At the time of the attacks, I was working in building the Tower 2, the South Tower. I worked in the original South Tower from about the end of 1997, and I think I was there for about maybe a year and a half, and then they moved me to the 94th floor of Tower 1. And I was there for a year and a half, and in December of 2000, that's when they decided to move our group back to Tower 2. I was so mad that they moved us, but you know, that decision is what saved my life.
The morning started just like every other morning. You know, I wake up, my alarm goes off 5:08 in the morning, and I'm in the shower at 5:18. Regular morning. Get up, take a shower, get in the car, go to the train. Got to New York my regular time. I got to Newark Penn Station. Transfer there to the Path, which was the subway that goes directly from Newark to the directly underneath the World Trade Center. Get out of the Path, go right upstairs. I was at my desk, 7:30, and started my normal morning routine. Everything was as normal as you could be.
I remember it was a beautiful day outside. I was at my desk, and I was standing, and I was talking to my boss, and the windows were behind him, and we were facing south. So it was in the South Tower, facing south. We could see the Statue of Liberty from there. And then I remember we were just talking, and all of a sudden we heard this sound. It almost sounded like the buildings used to sway when it would get windy, but it almost sounded like that. But then it just grew and grew to be this big kind of whooshing sound, and then it was like bang. We knew something had happened, but we didn't quite know what. And then, I was staring right at him, and in the windows behind him, I could see all these papers fly by. And then I saw a big flaming chunk fly by.
I immediately stopped and I looked up, waiting for the ceiling to come crashing down on me. And it didn't. And then it was quiet. And then there was no big deal. We were like, what do we do now? And immediately we're like, let's get out of here.
At the very last second, my boss said, I'm going to go back and get my notebook computer. And I thought, I'll go back and get mine too, because I never would have thought that was the last time I was ever going to see anything from my desk. It started to get crowded around like the 20th floor or so, and that's when they made the announcement that Tower 1 has been hit by an airplane, and Tower 2 is in no imminent danger, and that you could go back to work. And I watched people leave the stairwell and head back into the building. We continued down, and we got to the mezzanine level, which is like 2 stories up, and it's the first time I got to see outside. And I looked outside, and it looked like a war zone. Everything was just completely covered with dust, and it looked like that it just looked terrible. So we thought that we were going to be able to just walk outside through where the courtyard is, and instead they made us go down to the bottom floor, which is where the mall was, and they basically pushed us into where the mall of the World Trade Center was. Nobody knew what was happening until I got basically a text from my buddy Dave, who was copy and pasting stuff from CNN's website That's how I knew that there was terrorism. And nobody around me knew that it was terrorism. When we initially got down, we were just standing, and I was standing with my friends, and we were trying to figure out what to do. And while we were standing basically underneath the building, that's when the second plane hit.
Second plane hit the south side of Tower 2. In other words, directly above my floor.
We didn't know what it was. We just heard a big bang, and all the lights went black. And then when they came back on, that's when panic happened with everybody that was standing in that area. So we ran, and normally I take the PATH train home, but instead I decided that day not to go in the PATH train because I wanted to sort of stay with my friends. And so we headed toward a subway entrance, and none of the cars were running, but they let us in and they made us walk all the way down the platform, and we came up by Church Street. And that's the first time I came outside. We looked up at the building, and we felt like that there could be something, that it could come. But we didn't expect the whole building to come down. We thought it would come this way. So we just tried to get far enough away from the building that if it fell over, we would not have been in the path of the building.
And then I get a page from my boss, Tandy, my richest boss. I just saw the building come down. And I almost couldn't believe it.
We tried to take a ferry by the South Street Seaport, and by the time we got there, the building had fallen. And there was this huge cloud of smoke that had basically come all the way to the South Street Seaport. So from what I could see, I see people coming toward me through this cloud of smoke, and we realized we can't go that way. So now we just started walking along the East River.
We're walking with everybody. We all have our bags, and and at one point there was actually a big puddle. We all had to scale this little wall. It was like out of a movie. We couldn't believe it. And we walked, we just kept walking. And then, I heard something, and I heard that the second building came down.
We floated basically right by where the trade centers were, and I looked out the window, and it was just the first time I'd ever seen downtown without the trade centers. And the problem was that this ferry, which is one of these fancy, beautiful ferries, was so overcrowded that it kept stalling. And I really thought that it was going to sink. I thought, with everything else going on in that day, I thought that is how I was going to die. I finally made it home about 3:30. My wife was home with my children, who were little, and so my parents, who were at the time living in Atlantic City, drove to North Jersey and picked me up and brought me home. So I was home by 3:30.
For years, I've known people who live in New York, and to them, New York is the only place, the greatest place in the world. There's no other place. They call it the city, because there is no other city. I'll bet you if you ask those people today how they feel about New York, they're not going to be as excited about the city. All the New Yorkers, nobody wants to be in the subways. Nobody likes to commute to the city. I try to work from home as much as I can. Most of the people work from home, a couple days a week. It's scary because, I'm on the subway the other day, and I see a policeman with his flashlight. He's really focusing on something, really trying to get a good look. And I had to make a decision in my mind. Does that make me feel more safe or less safe?
Now, 10 years later, I think it's made me appreciate all of the things that I have, and appreciate life a little bit more, because I know that it could have ended so easily. If I had gone down to the PATH trains, what if I had gotten stuck there? If we had hung around, like I probably would have, stayed to watch the buildings fall. If my friends hadn't been like, hey, let's get out of here, this thing could fall over, I probably would have stayed right there and watched it. And then, so I really do feel that it was never a good thing, but I feel like I appreciate life a lot more than I did. I think a lot of people, they say that they remember, but I think most of them, they don't even think about it. They don't think about what happened. I think that with somebody like me, 9/11 is it's right on the tip of my mind. It doesn't take much to trigger the thoughts of what happened. And I think with most people I talk to, it's, especially when I'm living in Florida, they don't really think about it. They don't think about where we were. They don't think about, just today we were on a train together. I'm thinking about the fact that there could be somebody there with a bomb on the train, even today. I always think of that stuff. When I first saw them, I felt like that, hey, wow, that's pretty cool. Just it looked like a cool thing. But when I was walking around and I was looking for my friend Mike D'Esposito's name, it really made me realize I was walking very slowly and I was looking at every single name, and it really affected me because it really makes me think of all of the people that died. And the enormity of this pool, the size, it's just it's overwhelming to see in person. I've seen it on TV, but seeing it in person is very different, and it affected me much more than I thought it would. It really did.